Welcome. Welcome, my friends. Welcome to Inspiring You. If we ever met, I'm Henry. I walk the path of energy intuitive, multidimensional channel. I'm a way opener of harmonic resonance, anchoring harmonic pathways of soul remembrance, vibrational clarity, and frequency aligned embodiment. I'm also a frequency architect, soul stream translator, and crystalline grid harmonizer. All light transmissions shared here are received in direct alignment with my oversoul, Sahariel, my soul aligned higher self, Aurelia, and my assigned collective guidance light team, including the Arcturian frequency technicians, the Christed Earth grid keepers, Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Thoth, Archangel Michael, Kaliathia, Sahariel, and the Spirit Doctor team, each attuned to pure source light and the reclamation of sovereign soul pathways. Friends, we are going to be doing the energy forecast for August 2025. So, the overall theme, my friends, is the harmonic month of refinement, choosing resonance over residue. So, today we're entering that field of August 2025 in the overarching energy forecast theme of the harmonic month of refinement, choosing resonance over residue. So, friends, let's just have a moment with that. Let's say that again slowly because the words matter here. Refinement, resonance, residue. So, refinement, resonance, residue. This month is about the harmonic month of refinement, choosing resonance over residue. This month is not about speed, action, or expansion. It's about recognizing what still lingers in your field that doesn't actually belong to you anymore. And also having the courage, the clarity, and the nervous system capacity to release it without guilt and without performance. But before we get into that, let's just have a moment. Close your eyes if you can and take 3 deep breaths. Breathing in life force energy, breathing out when no longer supports you. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. And let's just arrive in this space as is. All right. So let's begin with what refinement actually means. Refinement is not just about simplifying, it's about becoming vibrationally accurate. That means being willing to feel when something, even something that once mattered deeply, no longer fits the tone of who you've become. And the guides willingly admit, and maybe you will too, because I do, this can be really hard for most humans. This can be hard for us in the humaning. Why? Because we're conditioned to keep what we've built, to hold on to roles, relationships, habits, agreements, and dynamics that used to feel aligned, even when they no longer are. And we fear that releasing these will mean losing connection, identity, or safety. Yet, y'all, the soul does not operate by loyalty to the past. The soul does not play at that, friends. Mm-mm. The soul doesn't operate by loyalty to the past. It operates by coherence in the presence. So, refinement is the moment when your soul says, this is no longer mine to carry. Not because it's wrong, not because it's bad, but because it's no longer resonant with who you are now. So, what does it mean then to choose resonance? Let's bring this into everyday human life here. You might wake up and feel a heaviness around a commitment you've made weeks ago. And you said yes because at the time It felt aligned, or at least it didn't feel like a big deal. But now your system starts to constrict. Maybe your stomach tightens. Maybe your throat closes a little. Maybe your energy drops just thinking about it. Anybody had that experience before? I certainly have. So that is your field telling you the resonance has changed. It's not right, wrong, good or bad. It's the business of business. It's the business of resonance. Resonance isn't emotional preference. Resonance is the energetic truth of how something vibrates in your body, mind, and soul. And if you override that message, you don't just experience fatigue, you start to mismatch your own frequency. I'm going to repeat that. You don't just experience fatigue, you start to mismatch your own frequency. Choosing resonance means listening to the subtle cues. It means learning to say, this no longer feels true, not because I'm avoiding it, but because I've shifted. And we all recognize that it can be hard for the humans at times. So, with that, let's talk about residue. What about residue? Residue is what remains in your field after a timeline, relationship, belief, or behavior has served its purpose, but hasn't yet been fully cleared. Residue can show up as unexplained irritability towards something that shouldn't, we put that in quotes, bother you. But it just means that there's something there to be cleared. Residue can show up as looping thoughts or emotions after an old cycle has ended. Residue can show up as carrying guilt or responsibility for something that no longer matches your path. Residue can show up as saying yes because you're used to saying yes, even though it drains you now. I mean, y'all, I'm smiling at that one because I feel like I've been there on that one quite a few times. Woo-wee. Humaning is an adventure. So residue isn't always visible, but it is energetically sticky. Even if you don't clear it. Let me reframe that. And if you don't clear it, it distorts your clarity, slows your embodiment, and makes it harder to walk your actual path. So again, residue isn't always visible, but it is energetically sticky. And if you don't clear it, it distorts your clarity, slows your embodiment, and makes it harder to walk your actual path. That's why, in regard to at this time, the clearings and recalibrations are something the guides talk a lot about. And for me, I've been guided to do, many, many clearings and recalibrations. And again, everyone is different in terms of where they are, what their roles may be, and what they're called to. But just know residue isn't always visible. It is, though, energetically sticky. And if you don't clear it, it distorts your clarity, slows your embodiment, and makes it harder to walk your actual path. So here is what is happening, though, in regard to August. August is not a month of massive visible change. It's a month of fine-tuning your frequency so you stop leaking energy into what's already complete. It asks, what are you still holding on to that you don't truly resonate with anymore? What have you been saying yes to from habit, guilt, or fear of conflict? Where are you still adjusting your tone so others don't get uncomfortable? I'm going to repeat that one. Where are you still adjusting your tone so others don't get uncomfortable? Oh, yeah. So in what residue from past roles, identities, or service paths may be still clinging to you, quietly draining your power. So that would be where to having a clearing recalibration could be beneficial for you. So what does refinement though look like in action? So here are some examples that may help ground this. So let's just take one example. A woman who's always been an emotional, like the emotional caretaker in her family. So this woman notices, she notices that phone calls with her sibling now leave her feeling drained, unacknowledged, or resentful. So her old her would say, "Well, it's family. I just have to show up." But in August energy, her field contracts and she realizes that being available in that dynamic is no longer her light truth. She doesn't need to make a big speech. She just simply lets herself pause, not answer the phone or say, "I can't hold that space right now." That is refinement. You don't have to make a big hubbub about it. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to talk to your family or family member or friend, loved one, whomever it is. It just means that you may need to take a pause and take a moment. Here's another example. So there's a person who has been teaching a course for years. And this course, it's worked, it's served. But now, even though the registrations are steady, this person's body feels dull. This person's system isn't lighting up around the content anymore. The old version of this person would push through, repackage, make it better. But now this person hears the inner voice say, "This isn't aligned. You've outgrown it." That moment of realization is choosing resonance. And what this person does next isn't from panic, it's from integrity. I will say though, in regard to these examples, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have moments of going through loss and grief, mourning, an old identity, sadness, but that's also where the self-realization work comes in and realizing like, oh, the old architecture is being called to come to completion, to clear. So the new aspects of becoming for me are coming through. And again, it doesn't mean you have to make a big hubbub or like big declarative statements of like, "I'm just done with this." It can be a slow moving process where, maybe, if this person is going to teach the class, they teach the class, understanding that there's something else coming in and this one is being called for a completion. It doesn't have to be in extremes of like, "I'm done and I'm moving to something." Because remember, you can take it as the human also needs it in terms of the pacing. So that's where, recognizing the resonance and then also working with the human. So with all of this though, and so August then with it, it's not asking you to go into your trauma or fix your life. August is asking you, can you feel the tone of what you're carrying? And can you let go, not with force, but with accuracy? You don't need to collapse to make a change. You don't need to be dramatic or justified. You just need to feel this isn't mine anymore. And that's the core teaching. And I will also say, like years ago, when many of you may know that I worked in television for many, many years, for like well over 20 plus years. And when I got the calling to be complete with working in television, to fully shift into doing practitioner work, I was like, "Oh," but I knew it, but it took me, I felt the resonance shift, but it did take me 2 years to complete the process and completely, you know, close out that chapter with television to fully move over into practitioner work. Even though I had been taking practitioner courses for years and I had been, in the process of, working with clients, but not as I do now as a, I had still been in kind of two places at once. But that's where, though, you recognize in the humaning, you're being called complete in one to shift to another. But it does not have to be, again, it doesn't have to be dramatic or justified. And you don't need to collapse to make a big change. It's just a recognition that this isn't mine anymore. And that's the core teaching. So before we step into this theme even more so, let's just fully ground more so into the harmonic roof of August. So, again, the overall theme is the harmonic month of refinement, choosing resonance over residue. This is not just like a headline. It's a vibrational atmosphere of the entire month. Every theme we touch is held within this broader harmonic structure of this overall theme. You're not just working through topics, you're moving through an orchestration of field recalibration. This month invites you to let go of roles, agreements, frequencies, and behaviors that may have once served, but now leave residue instead of resonance. So this month invites you to let go of roles, agreements, frequency, behaviors that once may have been served, but now leave residue instead of resonance. So you're being called then to recognize that and then declare the residue so you can move into the resonance. So you're not being asked to collapse, overprocess, or overperform. You're being invited to become crystal clear in tone and walk only with what matches. This is not a month of force, it is a month of precision. Refinement is the current rising octave of the wave of becoming, something that we've been talking about a lot in the Inspiring You Patreon, and I have been sharing it also on the podcast and on YouTube, but not as much as I do on the Inspiring You Patreon. So if you have not joined the Inspiring You Patreon, y'all, I definitely recommend. There is a free component where I do send out free updates and newsletters, but then there's also several tiers that you can join. But that is where, right at this time, where a lot of the container of this light information is being held. So check it out if you can or if you want to, and I'll put the link below. All right. So refinement is the current rising octave of the wave of becoming, not an expansion outward, but an inward harmonic clarification. And then within the wave of becoming is the tri-wave. So the tri-wave field stabilizes its convergence this month through subtle sacred refusal, not pushing away, but choosing what no longer enters. And then the spiral of becoming has come through the wave of becoming. So the spiral of becoming initiates a crystalline inward curve, pulling us back into vibrational alignment with the soul's original tone before distortion, before dilution. And so within all of this, though, we're also, in our humaning experience, we're being housed in Mother Earth, in Gaia. And so for August 2025, the planetary field transmission in regard to the harmonic month of refinement, choosing resonance over residue, the planetary grid is also undergoing a synchronized throat chakra liberation and solar plexus recalibration across both the collective and crystalline earth interface. So think about that. Throat chakra liberation and solar plexus recalibration for the collective and crystalline earth interface. Like, wow. I mean, when that came through, I had to take a moment with it to think about Mother Earth and just wow. So, what does that mean? That means the will to speak and the clarity to speak are moving into vibrational coherence. I will say I woke up this morning, August 1st, and I was like, wow, I feel like I got a little pep in the step. I feel like, okay, yeah, I felt energized and really excited to do this podcast episode, and another episode came through as well, and I was like, wow. I just felt that there was a shifting in regard to throat chakra and throat chakra liberation. So the will to speak and the clarity to speak are moving into vibrational coherence. Fields of past life suppression and ancestral silencing are actively unraveling. That's why also clearings and recalibration are really important at this time. Solar plexus is being cleared of compensatory drive and restored to authentic, quiet authority. And then this harmonic pairing activates a nervous system tremor in many, not because something is wrong, but because this level of soul aligned communication has never been felt this clearly in the body. The body, the nervous system has to also get used to it. So, with that, then you may feel wobbly or overstimulated after speaking light truth, a buzzing in the diaphragm or fluttering in the throat after you speak light truth, a sudden emotional waves after gentle honesty. So, just know that your system is then getting used to being at a different level. Or maybe this is the first time ever in terms of level of soul aligned communication. So these are not regressions, they are recalibrations. And that's why understanding how the body moves through soul embodiment is so important. So these are not regressions, they're recalibrations. And the energetic field is teaching the human system how to hold power without pushing, how to speak without splitting from the soul. And then in the wave of becoming, the tri wave field this month completes a coherent sweep of the lower to upper band harmonization. The third harmonic node opens at the diaphragm, rises to the throat, and prepares the field for full soul tone reverberation by month's end. So, y'all, this is not a test, it is a tonal entrainment. You're not being asked to prove your light truth. Like, thank goodness on that. Anybody else feel relief on that? So, you're not asking to prove your light truth. You're being asked to become its frequency, quiet, coherent, unshakable. Praise be to that. And then the Lionsgate this year, 8/8, which if you're on the Inspiring You Patreon, I did share a timeline because we've been in some preparation mode with that. But planetarily, August sits within a harmonic buffer zone, a vibrational window between recent solar recalibrations and the equinox convergence point. We're not in a collapse nor in launch. We're in fine tuning. So, this energy forecast is your invitation to stop leaking energy into expired timelines and walk as the resonance you now carry. With that, my friends, let's walk through each harmonic and how it weaves into the greater spiral architecture, the tri-wave balancing, and the planetary field orchestration. So now theme 1 is the frequency of refusal, choosing soul truth over subtle compromise. So let's name something right away. Most people think of refusal as resistance, as rejection, as pushing something or someone away. But that's not the kind of refusal this theme speaks to. This theme is about refusal as clarity, refusal as field integrity, refusal as the silent moment when your system says, that's not mine anymore. Or for me, many, many years ago, when I was working in television, I was working on a show and there was a moment that happened on set and it just was all kinds of things were going on. And there were producers crying everywhere. And as I was walking through set to go to support people, I had a moment of, I'm done. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm done being in experiences like this. I'm done. It was a silent moment. My system said, like, this is not mine anymore. And I clearly remember that moment. And so with it then, it's like that's where you start to understand like the frequency of refusal, choosing soul truth over subtle compromise. And that was my moment of like the frequency of refusal, like choosing the soul truth. So it's refusal as the silent moment when your system says, that's not mine anymore. Or like for me, it was like, I'm done. And so what this theme actually means in August, one of the very, and by the way, with all of this, you can still be an act of grace on it. Like for me, even though I knew I was complete in that experience, I I did I did still support people in that day. I didn't just walk off set and go home, which may have been beneficial for my human if I had, because it was a very someone had created a situation that was just reverberating like trauma, and it was a very difficult situation for many people to be in. But I stayed, and I finished out the show, you know. But that's where you're making then, even though you have the clarity of the understanding of what your soul is saying, you still have free will in your experience as you're human. And there might be some other micro moments and decisions that you're making, even though you have the frequency of the refusal of what your soul truth is now. But let's break it down even more, what this theme actually means. And by the way, I share some experiences from my own life because it's not necessarily like, it's just not one way or another. There's like a whole component of a gray scale. And it doesn't mean that you're not still hearing your soul or understanding the process. It's, we're living this experience that is so amazing, but it can be extremely complicated humaning. And it can be extremely complicated than soul embodied humaning. So what does the theme actually mean? The frequency of refusal, choosing soul truth over subtle compromise. In August, one of the very first harmonic adjustments you'll experience is a rising awareness of where you've been saying yes when your soul is already a no. It is in not just obvious situations, but subtle compromises. Conversations you keep having to maintain closeness. Roles you step back into even though you've outgrown them. Agreeing to just help out one more time. For me, when I was working in television and I understood like 2 years prior that I was, getting the call to be complete with TV, I felt like it was like, "Oh my god, just one more show, one more show, one more show." So agreeing to just help out one more time reminds me of like the agreeing one more show. But agreeing to help out one more time when your field is already depleted or you're complete with the process. Ah, humaning. Adjusting your voice timing or light truth to make others more comfortable. Anyone relate to that one? So this month we'll bring these moments into sharper focus, not as punishment, but as an invitation. So the teaching is refusal is not about pushing away. It's about no longer bending inward. So refusal is not about pushing away. It's about no longer bending inward. And so here's an example. Let's say you're someone who's been the go-to person in your workplace. You're competent, you're trusted, you get asked to just jump in constantly. And until now, you have said yes. And it feels like a service, it feels like value. But this month, you feel it immediately. Your stomach tightens, your thoughts go foggy, your energy drops, and still the pressure rises. But they need me. It won't get done otherwise. They'll think I'm selfish. All these little thoughts might come up. But here's the light truth. If your system is constricting, your soul is speaking. If your system is constricting, your soul is speaking. Your soul's speaking through your nervous system. It's letting you know. And this month, you're not meant to override that message. You're not meant to override that message. You're being asked to refuse, not from defensiveness, but from alignment. And you can do that with ease, grace, groundedness, alignment, compassion, care. It might take a few times though, because at first you might not be used to it. So also give yourself patience in learning this process, especially if you've been someone who's been saying yes, 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 yes. The no might not be easy and the refusing might not be easy. It might feel like it's completely just foreign to you. And that's where you have to like work with the human and the nervous system to be like, okay, we can do this because you're letting go of old conditioning, old self to shift. So let's even get into it even more. What makes this hard for humans? Let's be real. Most people were taught that refusal means conflict, that saying no is selfish, that silence is rude, that pulling back is abandonment. So we keep softening ourselves to stay digestible. We keep explaining ourselves to stay liked. We keep nodding along with things we don't believe anymore because we don't want to make waves. But here's what this month makes clear: refusing distortion is not unkind, it's the most accurate form of compassion you can offer. Because when you agree to something that no longer aligns, you invite others into what the guides have said. This was a new one for me where I was like, say what? Oh. So when you agree to something that no longer aligns, you invite others into what the guides have said is an energetic lie. Energetic lie. Yes, I just said energetic lie. I mean, I had to have the guides repeat that a few times. I was like, "What?" So, and when you choose your light truth quietly, simply, you free the field to recalibrate. But again, it doesn't mean that you have to just cut things off quickly because then you're in fear of like, oh, because then you're getting caught in possibly urgency. See, humaning is very complicated in terms of the layering process. That's why letting yourself use the tools, clearing, grounding, aligning, and you might get the message a few times, but you want to make it then when you're in going into action that you're in a space of groundedness and alignment. But what refusal might look like this month? You pause because you want to, baby steps, y'all. We don't need to make big grand gestures here. Baby steps. So what refusal might look like this month? You pause before replying to a text and realize you don't want to respond right now, and that's okay. So just take a moment to pause. Maybe, you just take a moment to pause, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to reply, but you just take a moment. You don't want to respond right now, and that's okay. What refusal might look like this month is you're invited into a conversation that's familiar but draining. You used to engage. This time, you exit the loop without apology. You're asked to step into a role or service position, but your body goes still. You honor that stillness and you don't override. None of these are big, dramatic moments, but they are field defining shifts. Each time you refuse from soul truth, not reaction, you're clearing static from your field. And also, I just want to note the energy just shifted too. There's a real tranquil peace, that quantum energy, real deep feeling that I just noticed. So just take a moment to see if you can also feel it. So just noting too, like when things are shifting, you're then stabilizing. Like, so if you're each time you refuse from your soul truth, not reaction, you're clearing static from your field. You're stabilizing your harmonic tone. You're no longer distorting yourself to stay included. So, what might arise in the system? You might notice a softness in your no. It no longer comes with guilt, a pause before engaging, where you ask, do I actually have energy for this? A new fatigue after old habits of compromise, like societal exhaustion after people pleasing, an urge to explain yourself that you catch and release. I don't owe that story anymore. These are signals that frequency of refusal is activating in you, and let it. And remember, you're here to, it may be a process too in learning this because it's something new then in terms of the human. So here's a light transmission from Oversoul Sahariel. This month, this this is not the month to justify your boundaries. This is the month to stabilize them as living frequencies. The soul is no longer negotiating with partial truth. Refusal is not collapse, it is the end of distortion. It is the moment you stay fully with yourself without defense, without noise. And here's an integration note. You may feel discomfort as you begin to say no without wrapping it in explanation. That's normal. You're detoxing the emotional coding that said you owe everyone access to your energy. You have to soften, you are detoxing the emotional coding that also said you have to soften your truth to keep connection. You're also detoxing the emotional coding that said you must say yes or you'll be left out. So August clears that myth. Let your no be clean. Let your pause be enough. Let your refusal be quiet and sacred. You're not rejecting others. You're simply no longer abandoning yourself. And this is where the entire month of refinement begins. Refusing the almost aligned, refusing the slightly off, and refusing the roles that once made you feel safe but now dim your tone. And then in regard to the tri-wave alignment, the first harmonic pulse initiates the clearing vector in regard to this theme. This is the vibrational boundary setting moment in the tri-wave cycle, choosing what leaves the field. The wave of becoming in connection to this theme is the wave dips to cleanse embedded distortions. Light truth must lead before momentum returns. For the planetary field is enforcing core tone boundaries. Solar plexus compression pulses are guiding the collective away from false timelines through gentle refusal vectors. Emotional residue is being ejected from the lower mental grid. This is not aggression, it's frequency clarity. The Earth's crystalline interface is realigning integrity as silence. What leaves now never belonged. All right, with that, then, is Theme two is radiance through refinement, the power of subtle calibration. So as we are continuing through the overarching frequency overall theme again of the harmonic month of refinement, choosing resonance over residue. This is the second frequency strand of this harmonic field. Radiance through refinement, the power of subtle calibration. This theme builds directly on the first theme, where theme one asks you to stop compromising your tone to remain palatable. Theme two asks you to stop pushing for radiance and start listening for alignment. Y'all, this is not a purge. This is retuning. It's not about stripping everything away. It's about making micro adjustments, tiny frequency shifts that allow your soul's actual radiance to come through cleanly, without distortion, without noise, without amplification. And that's key. Radiance is not something you have to produce. It's something that emerges naturally when your frequency is finely attuned. So, what is subtle calibration? Subtle calibration means learning to recognize where your field is just a few degrees off from your soul's current vibration and choosing to realign, not override. If you do dowsing energy work, you can actually douse on this too. You can douse and see. So, what does this all mean? Feeling when the background music is too much, even if it's music you used to love. It means realizing that your normal food or sleep rhythm doesn't feel quite right anymore. It means sensing that a conversation feels one note too sharp, not because someone said the wrong thing, but because your field has moved into a more refined band of reception. These are not problems, these are frequency feedback mechanisms. And so here is an example in regard to subtle attunement in everyday life. Imagine a person who used to do their morning routine in a rush, podcast on, multitasking, checking their phone. They thought it was productive, but now in August, they start noticing that they feel foggy and disoriented after their mornings. Not because they're doing anything wrong per se, but because their field is now more sensitive. Their nervous system is trying to tell them you can't layer sound on top of sound anymore. You need spaciousness for your signal to come through. So the person starts to shift. They make the music softer. They turn off the phone. They pause between tasks and something opens. They feel clearer, lighter, more real. That's subtle calibration. It's not dramatic, but it changes everything. All right. But let's talk about like why this can be hard for most people. Because subtly doesn't feel productive. We're taught to look for big signs, big breakthroughs, big shifts, big production. Be big in your productivity. How much did you do today? Go, 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 go. But this month, ask you to become energetically precise, not emotionally loud. Subtlety is a sign of maturity. Your soul trusts you enough to whisper, and most people miss the whisper because they're still chasing noise. And I do know it's hard to change gears too, y'all. When I was being called to let go of the to doing and the to going, I had no idea how much it was embodied in my system at that time of like, go, 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 do, 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 do. And when I saw it and observed myself, I was like, whoa. So I have a lot of compassion for that. So most people miss the whisper because they're still chasing the noise. And August says, you're ready to tune, not purge, ready to refine, not perform. And with that, then what you might notice in your system in regard to this theme, you feel unusually tired after spending time in certain places, not because they're bad, but because they're no longer resonant. You get an urge to clear physical clutter, not but not from chaos, just because it feels misaligned to have the physical clutter. You want fewer words, slower conversations, more pause between interactions. You feel overwhelmed by screens or lights or group dynamics that you used to tolerate. You notice food, hydration, temperature, and rest affecting you more directly than before. These are subtle calibration signals, and they mean your energetic instruments are getting more precise. So here is a light transmission from soul aligned higher self Aurelia. Refinement is the art of soul intimacy. It asks, can you be honest about the 3% distortion in your field? Not because it's dangerous, but because it's unnecessary. Stop trying to glow, remove the static, the radiance will arrive on its own. It's the end of that light transmission. And also, if you do dowsing, you can do a dowsing session on that. Can you be honest about the 3% distortion in your field? You can do the yes, if you can do the percentages, and you can do a whole session on that. You can also do muscle testing too, and do an energy session on that as well. I just personally find dowsing to be more efficient. All right, so what refinement might look like this month? Canceling something you said yes to, not out of guilt, but because your frequency shifted. Saying no to familiar comfort food, not because of diet rules, but because your body says that's not resonance anymore. Turning off a show halfway through, not because it's bad, but because the tone started interfering with your calibration. Changing your language, not just what you say, but how you say it, because your words feel heavy unless they come from exact tone. This is subtle, but it's real. And what's actually happening is your body and field are acting like a vibrational dial, not a fire alarm. And your soul is using your sensitivities to fine tune the coherence of your timeline. This isn't punishment, it's access. Your system is now sensitive enough to notice the difference between almost aligned and exact. And you're being asked to trust the signal even when it seems small. So here's another example: a person who's used to working 10-hour days starting to feel deeply scattered. This person's not burnt out, but this person's energy is misfiring. This person's usual strategies don't land. And they finally realize that they've been skimming over the pauses. They've been moving through their day with fragmented attention. And so this person makes one change. They start breathing and grounding for 2 minutes before each task. They start pausing before each task. 2 minutes of breathing and grounding. And suddenly the day opens up. Their energy stabilizes. Their clarity returns. This is refinement. Nothing drastic, just precise. And the integration teaching is then, if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed this month, ask, is this too much stimulation? Is this environment, thought, sound, or food adding noise to my field? Is there a 2% adjustment I can make right now to come into alignment? Refinement is not dramatic. It's non-negotiable tone work. It teaches you, I don't need to overhaul my life. I just need to honor the frequencies I've already anchored. And so here's the closing for this theme. Let this month let this be let this be the month you stop measuring your growth by how much you do. Start measuring it by how precisely you can feel your tone. Radiance will not come because you reach for it. It will it will come because you're clear enough to hold it. Let radiance be quiet. Let refinement be subtle. Let your field become exact. You're not being tested. You're being entrusted with your own frequency. And then the tri-wave alignment for in connection to this theme is it's going to be midfield harmonic weaving. Tone coherence is chosen over tone volume. A soft alignment that recalibrates without reactivity. The wave of coming is the wave plateaus gently to stabilize, movement continues, but from within. And then the planetary field in connection to this theme is a soft grid refinement is occurring across the throat, heart, solar plexus axis. The planetary body is running subtle, scalar tones to dissolve over identification with performance. A frequency braid between personal auric tone and planetary tone is forming. Refinement is transmission. You calibrate the field by becoming a clean harmonic. Again, if you do dowsing, you can also douse to see your connection to earth and if there's anything that needs to be cleared or called in to strengthen in regard to these aspects. If you are in my Inspiring You Patreon, the all access level, we will be doing the energy forecast plus the group dowsing in related to these themes on August 2nd for the live class over Zoom, and then the replay will be available. So if you're interested in joining, I will put the link below to join. It's the all access level for the Patreon. All right, so now we're going to move into theme 3. Theme 3 is soul silence, listening for the signal within stillness. So we're continuing inside the vibrational atmosphere of the harmonic month of refinement, choosing resonance over residue. Each theme so far has peeled away distortion, invited subtle calibration, and helped you feel where your tone is already shifting. Now we're arriving at one of the most misunderstood movements in the entire month: soul silence, listening for the signal within stillness. So let's break it down. What is soul silence? Let's name this clearly. Soul silence is not a void. It is not a pause between transmissions. It is the transmission. It is a field state where guidance no longer arrives through words, signs, or emotional waves, but through frequency compression. You're not receiving less, you're actually receiving more through a higher bandwidth that requires a different mode of listening. So, why it feels so strange at first? Because for most of your life, you've been taught to look for a noise as a sign of activity. The nervous system often equates silence with emptiness. The mind often equates not knowing with being lost. But in August, you're not lost. You're being pulled into a harmonic chamber where the soul's true signal can come through undistorted. It's like standing in a soundproof room and hearing. And for the first time, the tone of your own breath, not the voices, not the story, not the old guides, teachers, or thought loops, just you. I will say though, y'all, it does take a moment to be like, wait, what's happening? Something shifted. I'm somebody who, since I was a child, have been talking to my guides, my soul, even more so now in connection to them in a whole nother way, especially like my oversoul and soul and my collective guidance light team. But there was a moment where, a lot of these themes that are coming through, I tend to go through them, in regard to the embodiment sometimes months before. And so, or even sometimes like a month. But when I was going through this and I was like, something shifted. Why does it feel quieter? What is happening here? It took a moment. I was like, what? And so my guides had to, come through numerous times to just to support me and like essentially help calm the human that I'm in a transition and that this is okay and that there's actually going to be a higher bandwidth coming through. It took a moment though. It was definitely several sessions I had to do with my guides where I was like, what is happening here? So it can feel strange, and I just want you to know though, on the other end of it though, there is a higher capacity in terms of your bandwidth and in regard to your ability to hear your soul's true signal. It comes through undistorted, and it does feel completely different in regard to the strength of it, in regard to understanding it, and it can feel like then you're standing in a soundproof room and hearing for the first time the tone of your own breath, your tone, just you. So then what does this look like though for a human? Let's just break it down. Let's say you're someone who journals daily, prays, connects with guides, feel guided by the synchronicity, and suddenly in August, those things go quiet. Just like I kind of was saying, go quiet. You sit down to write and nothing comes. You walk outside and the usual signs don't appear. You ask a question in meditation and you receive nothing but stillness. And this triggers the inner dialogue. Am I blocked? Did I do something wrong? Am I not connected anymore? But here's what's really happening. Your field is too full to process through more information. The soul is broadcasting internally, not externally. This is not disconnection, it's integration. You are no longer learning, you are receiving through compression. So here's another example in terms of the signal of stillness. Imagine someone finishing a major life transition, leaving a job, ending a relationship, moving home. Normally, they'd expect signs about the next step, but instead, they enter a zone where everything feels neutral, flat, quiet, no clarity, no urgency, but also no chaos. And they think something's wrong. But the light truth of this situation is the system is in deep reorganization. The new frequency isn't verbal yet. It's downloading through the body. Stillness is not nothing. It's data without language. Again, stillness is not nothing. It's data without language. So, what makes soul silence difficult? Humaning. Humans crave feedback. We love free feedback. Humans crave feedback, especially in spiritual growth. We want the signs that we're doing it right. And when nothing seems to happen, that wounded mind says, I failed. I must not be connected anymore. I'm blocked. But in August, you're not blocked. You're simply being tuned beyond the bandwidth of mental interpretation. This is not passive silence. This is a recalibration chamber. So how it might feel. You feel like nothing is happening, even though your energy feels heavy, dense, or tired. You have less desire to speak, explain, or interact, even with people you love. You're uninterested in new projects, visions, or direction, but you're not in despair either. You feel a fog in the mind, but a deep pull inward from the body. You find dreams, sound, breath, and silence more nourishing than thinking or talking. This is not regression. This is soul signal recovery. Soul signal recovery. So here's a light transmission from my higher self, Soul Aurelia. Stillness is not emptiness. It is the exact condition required for the soul's purest tones to transmit unaltered. You're not missing the message. You're becoming the chamber that holds it. That's the end of that light transmission. So, and by the way, I've had many moments with Aurelia where I'm like, I need support. I'm like, it feels so different. Can we go back to the way it used to be? I mean, y'all. And they had to come in and soothe me like, it's okay. You're going to be okay. What's happening? And I will say now on the other side of it, yeah, it does. You have a clearer tone. You gotta be patient through the process and you gotta help the human get through it. That's where tools come in. So what to do in this space? The guides say nothing extra. Let go of needing an answer. That's not as easy said as done though. Let go of needing an answer. Let go of your usual practices if they feel hollow. Let yourself lie on the floor. Let yourself walk in silence. Let your body become the place the light transmission lands. Here's an affirmation that you could try if it resonates. Even in silence, I'm receiving. Even in stillness, my field is reforming. My soul does not speak in noise, it speaks in presence. So try that affirmation. You can Reiki it as well. And then here's another example to support understanding this theme. A person usually feels their creativity through daily inspiration. They paint, journal, teach, and in August, all of that goes quiet. The person feels dull, blank, nothing comes through. Their first instinct is to force reentry, to try to figure it out. But instead, they choose to stop asking. They choose to go into nature. They choose to sit in the sun. They choose to let their breath lead. And after 3 days or so, without warning, an image appears in their mind. It's not a message, it's a tone. And from that tone, a new creative direction emerges, not from strategy, but from field attunement. That's the real work, not chasing signal, becoming available for what already wants to land. So here's the closing of this theme. Soul silence is the moment the soul whispers, I'm not gone, I'm here. I'm not broadcasting through vision. I'm recalibrating your field to embody what I already sent. And this is where you stop waiting for signs and begin to reorganize yourself as the sign. You are the sign. Don't interpret silence as lack. Recognize it as richness beyond language. This theme holds you in its quiet chamber. You don't need to ask the next question. You're already holding the answer. It just hasn't formed into words yet, but it will. It hasn't formed into words yet, but it will. All right, so for this theme, in terms of the tri-wave alignment, it's still point phase. The compression spiral activates, inviting stillness for deeper signal reception. For the wave of becoming, surface motion quiets, subterranean transmission strengthens. This is the inward curl. For the planetary field aspect, planetary crust layers are slowing their vibrational spin rate to allow inner crystalline resonance fields to rise. This is not a planetary pause, it is a signal compression moment. All external noise is being muted in favor of a deep wave of attunement. Stillness is signal now. The earth is transmitting beneath your inner field, not above it. Now we're going to move into the next theme with that, then, my friends. So we're going to close out the theme, moving to the next one. This month is about choosing resonance over residue, aligning the subtle hues of your field with your soul's clearest signal. And now the harmonic arc brings us to one of the most radiant and also demanding frequencies of all. Theme number 4. Prismatic core alignment, activating the full color frequency of the soul. What does that mean? What is prismatic core alignment? It is the energetic process of restoring your soul's full color bandwidth after lifetimes of contraction, dimming, and distortion. It means allowing the vibrational spectrum of your being, not just the spiritually acceptable tones. To live prismatic is to release the grayscale of conditioned expression. To align with your prismatic core means to embody the light truth that you are not one note, but a full harmonic spectrum of divine frequency. So, why this theme matters in August. So, after theme 3's invitation to stillness, your inner field becomes a receptive vessel. But now the soul begins to pulse forward, and it doesn't arrive in monotone. It arrives in color, in layers, in frequency textures, each one representing a part of your light truth, a previously hidden aspect of your identity, a tone of your original soul blueprint. This theme is where self expression, soul visibility, and energetic reclamation begins to merge. So here's a human context. So many humans have been taught to filter their frequency. Don't be too emotional. Don't be too quiet. Don't be too intense. Don't be too sensitive. Don't be too bright. But your soul's frequency is not meant to be edited. Prismatic core alignment is the process of taking back the tones you hid to be accepted, wearing your internal spectrum as your field signature, reclaiming the parts of yourself that were labeled too much or not enough. This is about becoming energetically unedited. So here's an example. Imagine someone who's deeply spiritual and deeply sensual. In spiritual circles, they're told to tone down the sensual. That's too much. In secular spaces, they're told to tone down the spiritual. So in spiritual circles, they're told to tone down the sensual. In secular spaces, they're told to tone down the spiritual. So they compartmentalize, they fragment, they dim. But in August, the frequency begins rising in both spectrums. They can feel their wholeness trying to pulse through, but the old roles can't hold it. They begin to feel edgy, frustrated, confused. This is not a problem. This is prismatic realignment. The soul is trying to synthesize everything you are into a unified field signature, not separated, not layered, not masked, unified. Unified. So, what this may look like. You suddenly feel emotionally vivid, Colors seem brighter, emotions sharper, old fragments of your identity return. The artist, the child, the mystic, the central one. You feel uncomfortable in environments where your full frequency isn't welcome, which bringing compassion for the human, this can be really challenging at times. You feel a physical compression when you're being performative or overly edited. You're drawn to change how you dress, speak, create, or move, seeking feel congruence. So here's a light transmission from Oversoul Sahariel. The soul does not divide itself by human preference. It arrives as a spectrum encoded in light truth. You're not here to be palatable. You're here to be prismatic. Your resonance is not earned, it is remembered. Every color of your field carries a tone of remembrance. And when you withhold one, the harmony distorts. This is not the month to shrink your hues. This is the time to return to full spectrum embodiment. So, that being said, though, navigating this frequency, because all of this sounds really great and grand and amazing. Like, yes, 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 yes. But I always have these talks with the guides. I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. But like, how do we workshop it with the humans? How do we do it? Like, how does it, how do I help my human? So navigating this frequency, you may feel pressure to pick a lane, but the soul is asking for synthesis, not fusion through compromise, but alignment through light, truthful layering. So let yourself be complex without explanation. Be soft and fierce in the same hour. Wear red, wear white, wear none. Speak gently, speak boldly, speak when silence has integrated. Stop apologizing for the ways your presence is changing. You're not meant to be legible to everyone. You're just meant to be aligned to yourself. So with that though, here's some affirmations that can support this. And I definitely recommend, doing some Reiki on them. So having Reiki affirmations to support you. I allow the full spectrum of my soul to pulse through me. I no longer filter to be accepted. I refine to be resonant. I activate the unedited hues of my inner light truth. I release the need to be understood and choose to be expressed. And if anything came up with that too, that might be some aspects that you want to investigate. My field sings in color, my soul lives in light. So those are the affirmations. And then here is the summary for this theme and integration. Prismatic core alignment is not a one-time action. It is a field shift. Each time you stop apologizing for who you are, each time you let a repressed frequency return to the light, you bring another color online. And your soul begins to hum. This month, don't go back to black and white safety. Step fully into your spectrum. Not louder, not showier, but truer. Refinement doesn't mean shrinking. It means tonal precision through authentic embodiment. This is where soul truth becomes visible in your aura, in your energy field. Not as projection, but as presence. And then in connection to this theme, the tri-wave alignment is full spectrum alignment phase, no longer monochromatic tone. Light line splits into harmonic color. Wave of becoming, emergent tones begin to rise after the silent curve. You begin to see and feel your harmonic self more vividly. Planetary field, the planetary grid is activating auric refraction nodes, allowing the collective field to perceive and radiate more precise color frequency. This is the visual harmonic surfacing of soul tones through heart and throat. Chakra systems are now being rewoven into spectrum consciousness. You're becoming visible to the field as your true frequency. It can now reflect you. And with that, then we're going to go into theme number 5, the edge of expression, risking voice, vulnerability, and vision. So we're still remaining anchored within the harmonic field signature of the month, which is the harmonic month of refinement, choosing resonance over residue. This is not a passive theme. It is the atmospheric bandwidth of August, shaping each inner movement, each external response. And in this fifth theme, we begin to feel how refined inner frequencies must eventually translate into expression. So, first off, though, with this theme, the edge of expression, risking voice, vulnerability, and vision, what is edge of expression? It is the razor thin threshold between inner light truth and outer voice. It's the uncomfortable pause before you tell the light truth. Not the bold truth shouted through a megaphone, but the trembling, vulnerable, quiet, light truth that could change the shape of your life if it were spoken out loud. That is what we're talking about. There is a discernment to be made between truth and light truth. Expression in this field is not performance based. It is not curated. It does not seek applause. It emerges raw, sacred, unguarded. And you then, moving through the first themes 1 through 4, you refined your field. And then you've anchored in resonance. And that now that resonance asks in theme 5, will you let me be heard even if it's inconvenient? Whoo-wee. Will you let me be heard even if it's inconvenient? Will you let me be seen even if it disrupts the roles you've played? Take a deep breath on that one. So, y'all, this theme is the moment when what's inside you is ready to emerge, but it hasn't yet found the safe ground to land. It is the frequency. It is the frequency for where your soul's vision, your felt truth, or your authentic voice wants to rise. But fear, shame, exposure, unworthiness pulls you back. This is not about, this is not just about speaking up. It's about allowing your entire inner field to be witnessed, heard, and received. So this theme in the energy architecture is in the harmonic latest of August 2025. This theme sits at the activation point where inner calibration begins to ripple outward, where frequency becomes articulation, where vision begins to take form through word, tone, and movement. It is a disruptive node for old identity. And this is where many humans hesitate. Not because they don't know what they want to say, but because they fear what will happen when they do. And why this matters in August. After you've recalibrated your vibrational spectrum in regards to theme 4, the soul naturally moves toward expression, not for performance, but as an act of integrity. But here is where the distortion often appears. The louder voices get celebrated. The perfect ones get platformed. The safe tones get rewarded. So many humans unconsciously shape their truth to fit a container that feels acceptable. But the August frequency does not support performance based expression. It calls forth raw, vulnerable, honest tones, especially the ones still quivering in the chest. So, subtle compromises that block expression. Silencing yourself to preserve harmony. Watering down your light truth to remain liked. Holding back ideas, opinions, or insights until they feel perfect. Avoiding confrontation, not out of peace, but out of fear. Hiding parts of your soul's knowing because you're not ready to explain it yet. These are not just behavioral patterns, they are frequency delays. They interrupt the harmonic transmission your soul came to deliver. And in August 2025, the frequency field will no longer support these compromises. Yep, So the collective context on this, the planetary grid is undergoing throat chakra liberation and solar plexus recalibration simultaneously. And this means the will to speak and the clarity to speak are becoming harmonically aligned. Emotionally charged is draining from old expression, which gives rise to refined tonal truth. But many will feel shaky, exposed, or vulnerable in this window because they have never spoken from this level of soul attunement before. It takes some getting used to. So, this is not the moment for rehearsed truths or ancestral scripts. This is a moment of harmonic risk. That's right, harmonic risk. Will I say what is mine to say without trying to be understood, approved of, or explained? It's harmonic risk. Y'all, it takes courage. It's not like something that is like easy peasy. When the guys start wanting, when the guys started bringing through the wave of becoming and the tri wave and then the spiral of becoming, I was like, whoo-wee. And then talking about oversoul in such a clear way, I was like, whoa, zerza. Yowzers. It's like, all right. And so it's a moment of harmonic risk. It's not like, yeah. But will you say what is yours without trying to be understood, approved of, or explained? Here's an example. A woman knows her soul wants to shift her business focus entirely. And this person has known it for a year. And so this person has built an identity around being the safe space for others. And this is their new truth is sharper, bolder, more directional. And so the soul's vision carries frequency, but the human, in terms of the personality aspect, has become attached to resonance through comfort. And now this person stands at the edge. Say the thing and shift the field, or stay silent and fracture internally. The choice is subtle, but the impact harmonic echoes across timelines. And that's where then taking time and processing and really just, you know, going inward and then supporting the human with a ton of compassion as you're moving through this process. So, real world application. This may show up as saying the thing you've held in for months, even if your voice shakes, an urge to speak what you've never said out loud, a pressure in the chest or throat when you silence your light truth, a sudden clarity about something you can no longer participate in, a memory resurfacing that invites public sharing or personal honesty, unexpected moments where your soul leads the conversation before your mind catches up, admitting what you truly want, even if it contradicts your role, letting someone see the part of you that is still healing, risking visibility for your art, your knowing, your calling, sharing a perspective that might not be understood but is true. So here is a light transmission from Aurelia. To express your soul truth is to cross the threshold of self protection. It is to allow the fragile and the fierce to stand side by side in your voice. An expression is not a performance, it is a harmonic revelation. Let yourself be heard, not because it is easy, but because it is aligned. You're not here to copy others, you're here to carry your frequency into form. That's the end of that light transmission. And this is a recalibration of courage because it is courage, my friends. This is a recalibration of courage, not the kind that pushes past the edge to dominate a room, but the kind of courage that meets the edge with tenderness and chooses to speak anyway. This is where clarity becomes more important than volume and where your soul asks, can I still express even if I'm not validated? Can I still speak even if I tremble? Can I show up even if my hands shake and my throat tightens? Oversoul Sahariel shares in a light transmission. There is a tone you carry that was encoded long before you spoke your first word. It is not loud, it is not polished, but it is pure. The frequency of your soul expression is the bridge between resonance and embodiment. You do not need to be ready, you need only to be willing. Speak not to convince, speak to release the light transmission from latency. What you say now becomes the next structure. If you withhold, your life will be built on delay. This is the edge, and the edge is your initiation. You do not have to cross it perfectly, but you must cross it aligned. That's the end of that light transmission. You may feel a lump in your throat when you're not speaking your full light truth, a need to say no more clearly or yes more boldly, a desire to show your work, your voice, your face without filters, a pull to initiate a conversation that feels uncomfortable but necessary, physical sensations in the throat, chest, or solar plexus signaling suppressed expression. And then here is a practice for refinement. Each day ask, where am I editing myself to be digestible? What part of me is asking to be named, seen, or voiced today? Am I protecting someone else's comfort more than my light truth? You do not need to scream. You do not need to speak clearly. You do not, let me say that again. You do not need to scream. You need to speak clearly, light truthfully, and soulfully. And then here's the integration for this theme. The edge of expression is a rite of passage. It is not loud, it is not always seen, but it is felt. This month, the soul asks you to risk being real, not rehearsed, to step out from behind the carefully shaped frequency and let your field ring out in truth. One honest tone, spoken in the right moment, can shift an entire timeline. Let that tone be yours. And then here is the connection to the tri-wave alignment for this theme. Resonant push outward in the second arc. Expression is no longer performance. It is precision, light transmission. Wave of becoming. Voice crests the inner curl, now ready to break surface. Planetary field. Throat chakra liberation pulses are intensifying across the grid. The planetary field are supporting clear sound wave release, not for performance, but for resonance release. Your nervous system may feel exposed. This is a soul vulnerability entering structural form. The earth is asking for light truth spoken as tone, not explanation. So, with that, then we go to the next theme, theme number 6, which is the sacred art. I'm sorry, theme number 6, which is the sacred act of withholding, honoring what is not meant to be shared. So, theme number 6, sacred act of withholding. Sacred act of withholding, honoring what is not meant to be shared. So, field context reminder. We are inside the harmonic month of refinement, choosing resonance over residue. And this theme marks a point of frequency precision, a sharp reorientation around the energetics of expression and the power of non disclosure. So, theme number 6, the sacred art of withholding, honoring what is not meant to be shared. What does that mean, though? What is the sacred act of withholding? This theme is not about suppression. It's not avoidance, secrecy, or self silencing. This is about energetic containment. The conscious choice not to speak, not to share, not to explain when the field has not called for it. We are in a month where the field is deeply concerned with refinement, resonance, and calibration. And refinement doesn't just ask us what to say, it asks what not to say right now. What light truths are still in gestation? What visions are still being encoded and should not yet be made public? Withholding in this sacred context is devotional stewardship of signal. I will say this entrainment has been something that the guides have been working with me on for a while, but specifically for months in regard to the embodiment of it. That just because information has come through and I'm learning something, it does not mean that I've been embodied enough to teach it or to make it public. The challenge is, though, we now live in a society where everyone is like, my God, I got information. I must share it. but that doesn't mean that you fully embodied it or you've completely in gestation of it. So that's what this theme is really about. Withholding in the sacred context is devotional stewardship of signal. So why this theme now? Because in the aftermath of theme 5, the edge of expression, there is often a backlash impulse to overexpress as a way to reclaim power. So there's often a backlash impulse to overexpress as a way to reclaim power. Some may feel, now that I found my light truth, I have to tell everyone everything. Some may feel, I'm not hiding anymore, so let me say it all. Some may feel, if I don't share it now, I'll lose the energy of it. But that's not soul alignment. And I know y'all, like I get it because in the humaning, like I've been there too. And so in this entrainment, like I now understand on a whole nother level why it's so important in regard to the embodiment of it. And also really the soul alignment of it. Because that's not soul alignment, that's urgency. So again, that's like overexpressing as a way to reclaim power. It's not soul alignment, it's urgency. And urgency often leaks frequency. Urgency often leaks frequency. So this theme invites a pause after the expression edge. It asks, is the sharing itself soul guided? Or is it an emotional purge, a need for validation, or premature energetic exposure? So let's take a moment to pause and stay with this often very misunderstood impulse. Urgency often leaks frequency. The moment the human self uncovers a deeper light truth, awakens a new remembrance, or receives a powerful energy download, it's natural to feel the immediate desire to want to express, to share it, to externalize the revelation. But we must ask, what is the source of that desire? Because not every impulse to speak is guided by soul. Sometimes it's driven by urgency. So let's define that clearly. Urgency is the activation of the unintegrated nervous system in the presence of a newly remembered light truth. It often arises from past timelines where one's voice was silenced, misunderstood, or punished, and it can masquerade as empowerment, but is still often tethered to wounding. When you feel, I finally reclaimed my light truth, I have to tell everyone right now, if I don't share this minute, I'll lose it. This insight will evaporate unless I post it, record it, or speak it immediately. That's urgency, not soul alignment. And urgency, when not witnessed and alchemized, leads to frequency leakage. Urgency is not just emotional haste. It is often a sign that the energy is not yet grounded or embodied. When the frequency of light truth is not anchored in the body, not metabolized through the layers of your energetic field, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, it floats above the system. It is real, but it is still in transit. And when urgency acts on that ungrounded impulse, it forces a premature output. That is why it leaks, because the energetic scaffolding to hold the light truth hasn't been constructed in the body yet. We live in a physical world, light into form. So yes, urgency is a signal that something is still ungrounded. The human feels the high vibration of the insight, but has not yet digested it. If you act from that place without grounding, without embodiment, you externalize from instability. You speak from an energetic cliff rather than from the inner earth. And anything spoken from that cliff will echo without resonance. And it may be technically true, but it will lack soul presence. What this means is anything spoken from that cliff will echo without resonance is a neutral echo devoid of harmonic coherence. It is a disembodied or misaligned echo, a projection lacking anchoring, truth frequency, or embodied field support. So, what does that mean? Echo without resonance. Echo without resonance is a disconnected reverberation, words or frequencies spoken from dislocation, from fear, ego, bypass, or misalignment. that bounce outward but carry no stabilizing waveform, no impact, no anchoring, no reception. They echo in emptiness, sounding but not singing. And let me just bring in the discernment between echoes, because there are beneficial echoes, there's non-beneficial. So this differs from echo without resonance differs from a harmonic echo. Harmonic echo is resonance-based, a soul-aligned amplification. Shadow echo is distortion-based, rooted in unprocessed density. Flat echo or echo without resonance, form without force, no soul signal behind it. A flat echo is a hollow projection lacking embodied frequency, creating reverberation without meaning or magnetism. So what does this all mean? Anything spoken from that cliff will echo without resonance. It's a flat echo. So the alchemy here is not suppression. It's allowing the light truth to root first, to breathe with it, to let it move through the nervous system, to listen where it wants to live in the body before letting it speak through the throat. Because what's grounded becomes trustworthy, what's embodied becomes transmissive. Urgency is the red flag of ungrounded frequency, and it calls for recalibration, not release. That is part of throat chakra mastery, one that Earth herself is modeling in this current refinement cycle. So here's more of a breakdown on why. When a light truth is newly accessed, it still lives within a sensitive energetic membrane. It is vibrationally tender, still calibrating. It's a baby. Sharing it too soon externalizes it before it's harmonically encoded into your field. And when that happens, it doesn't land with others the way you hope, because it hasn't fully landed in you yet. You might feel disappointed after you share or unseen. You might feel energetically drained. This is because you broadcasted a signal that was still buffering inside your system. You extended your energy without fully housing it. This is why withholding is sacred. Withholding is not about silence out of fear. It is about choosing to honor what is still growing inside your harmonic field. It is about giving time for an insight to root in your frequency so that when it's ready to be shared, it transmits not just as words, but as fully embodied resonance. You become the carrier of that light truth, not just the speaker of it. And that's where, if you use the word light workers or whatever word resonates with you, that's where many actually leak their field through oversharing, premature channeling, or speaking before inner architecture is built. You can feel it if you go on social media. Oftentimes, if somebody has a message that they're sharing and they're like, "I have a message for my guides," and like, you can feel at times like, oh, it feels ungrounded. It feels very much like a helium balloon floating, that it's not grounded. And it can be light truth, a message from the guides, but the person hasn't embodied it. It's premature channeling in regard to the greater public. They received a channeling message, but that message is still private and it hasn't gone on for public broadcast yet. So then their field is leaking through oversharing, premature channeling, or speaking before the inner architecture is built. And so then the planetary grid, then in regard to the connection, all this is currently undergoing this throat chakra recalibration we've been talking about, especially within Earth's harmonic body. So as the grid refines, so must your expression, because we are literally within Mother Earth's body. You're not meant to speak everything you receive. You're not meant to speak everything you receive. You're meant to live it first. We're here to live and be in presence. Supposed to be in presence first with it. And in that living, that light truth becomes transmission, not performance, not persuasion, not emotional relief, but coherence. So let your light truth mature within you. You're not here to rush light transmission. You're here to become the resonance of what you know, and only then share. And this is the sacred act of withholding. So then with it, then energetic implications of withholding. Just as every note in music requires the space of silence to create rhythm, every soul transmission requires incubation. What is not yet grounded should not be shared. What is still being formed in the inner plane must be protected from external projections. What is still integrating must not be handed off prematurely for another to interpret. This is how refinement becomes stabilized structure. And so then with that, then the connection even more so to the planetary and grid alignment insight. As of early August 2025, the Earth's crystalline grid is undergoing a timeline harmonization phase involving sacral throat and crown fields. This planetary movement corresponds to crown clarity, receiving the subtle truths and future visions, throat restraint, not expressing until integration completes, sacral sovereignty, holding energetic boundaries around creation. This triad is key to this month's grid based instruction because what is being birthed into the collective field right now is high frequency signal, and many souls are acting as light transmission points. But if those signals are exposed before the energetic spine is strong enough to hold them, they can become distorted, dismissed, or co-opted. So this theme exists to guard the architecture of what's not ready to be shared. So here are some examples in practice. You have a profound dream or spiritual download. It's powerful, potent, vivid. You want to post it immediately, but part of you knows it is still unwinding within you. There's more to see, more to integrate. Withholding here does not mean blocking the message. It strengthens the root. So withholding here does not mean blocking the message. It strengthens its root. And so just know that then. And another example is you've had relational breakthrough. You finally know your light truth in a connection. But instead of rushing to explain or confront, you hold it. You let the energy anchor first in your field. This kind of withholding creates energetic authority, not codependent disclosure. Another example is you're in the early stages of a new offering or creative work. It's exciting. You want to talk about it, but it's still fragile, still finding its structure. Speaking about it now might leak the power from your field. So here, withholding honors gestation over exposure. What withholding, so in regard to then, what withholding is not. Withholding is not manipulation. Withholding is not passive aggression. Withholding is not avoidance. Withholding is not repression of authentic desire. If it is driven by fear, shame, or hiding, it is not sacred withholding. If it is driven by soul timing, harmonic alignment, and frequency discernment, it is sacred. So then here is some other insight from Oversoul Council of Harmonic Creatorship. Not all tones are meant to be struck out loud. Some are meant to build inner resonance before external reverberation. The act of withholding is an art of preparation, not denial. When you withhold from alignment, you stabilize a harmonic architecture that will soon become part of the planetary grid. When you speak too soon, you build it in sand. Let the structures within you complete their crystalline blueprinting before offering them to the world. Silence in this way is not absence. It is sacred construction. And so then here's the connection to the tri-wave alignment. Boundary phase strengthens again. What is not expressed becomes sacred code held within. Wave of becoming, partial curl, drawing inward to conserve and preserve energetic intelligence. And from the planetary field, it is the grid tension is easing. The earth is no longer pushing output. It is containing harmonic codes within its core for future release. You're being taught to hold vibration without disclosing it. Containment is now frequency stewardship. Not every harmonic seeks exposure. So that is the first 6 themes. And so with that, my friends, I'm going to come back and do the rest of the themes because I need to go and take a break, but we'll have a few more themes And with that, also some other tools for integration too. So I will be back later on. Much, much love. Until soon, I will see you in a bit. Okay, friends, I am back for part 2 of the August energy forecast. I will say though, I am just going to put both videos together and I'm not going to edit it out. Basically, the first part we were doing really well. I think it was like over, I think it was like an hour and 35, 39 minutes. And I just started getting messages from my guides that I needed to take a break, go. My guides wanted me to, go have some electrolytes, have something to eat, and then come back to finish the rest of the August energy forecast. So I listened to the information, and that is what I did. So here we are. We are back, my friends, and let us get into theme number 7. Theme number 7: harmonic extraction, removing residue without disruption. So this theme enters with the skill of an energy surgeon, precise, attuned, and calibrated to remove what no longer belongs without triggering collapse, inflammation, or unnecessary upheaval. So, in this phase of the harmonic month of refinement, we're not being asked to destroy or dismantle everything that feels off. Instead, we're learning the soul technology of non disruptive clearing, extracting the distortion while preserving the integrity of what is aligned. Energetic residue often lingers in the field not because we're attached, but because the extraction process feels too aggressive or too final. This is where urgency or fear based reactivity causes the field to overcompensate, cutting cords violently, abandoning structures, or forcing transformation before stability is in place. But harmonic extraction is different. It's the practice of removing distortion through resonance, not rupture. It's knowing that refinement means subtle removal where you don't have to burn it all down. You simply recalibrate to such a pure frequency that anything that does not match cannot stay. It's not a fight, it's a field shift. So let's offer a few examples so this becomes grounded for the human system. You feel an old pattern rising in a relationship, maybe a tendency to overfunction or to explain yourself. Instead of confronting or cutting the other person, you pause, you feel the pattern in your body, and you recalibrate your own inner response. You speak you speak one sentence from coherence. That one sentence from coherence spoken from light truth without charge. It dissolves the loop that would have kept the dynamic repeating. So in your work, you sense a piece of your offering no longer fits, but instead of scrapping the whole program or publicly declaring its end, you sit with the subtle signal. You change one sentence in the description. You realign your frequency when speaking about it. You remove the residue energetically, and the material begins to evolve without disruption. This is not bypassing, this is field mastery. So, so an example though I could just give too would be previously for me in terms of my work, I may have pushed through, like, let me complete this one episode of the podcast of the energy forecast in one session. I may have ignored some of the signs my guides were sharing or things they were saying, and I might have just tried to push through to do it all in one sitting instead of taking breaks. So it's not bypassing, it's field mastery. So with this then, the earth, which I will say also, this has been a process for me not to get caught up in overworking per se or pushing myself beyond. Because when I worked in television, many of you know that I've talked about it. I worked sometimes 60, 70, 80 hours a week, sometimes 7 days a week, months at a time. And so In our humaning, it's about then where am I at in the experience and letting yourself shift and utilizing the tools. And so, in regard to Earth herself at this point, Earth herself is also showing us this now. Much of Earth's grid is undergoing precise resonance clearing, especially through the western coastline and the throat chakra belts. She's not collapsing her ley lines or rupturing her timelines. She is refining them. Earth is refining them, letting the distortions fall away through harmonic dissonance, simply no longer resonating, so they dissolve. So, too, must we then learn this within because we are within Earth's body as well. So, not all removal is dramatic. True soul aligned extraction leaves behind no scar, only clarity. So, what is dissolving through quiet refinement in your field right now? Where are you being invited to remove distortion without announcing destruction? So, really letting yourself take some time to process this. So, this theme then is a reminder your power is not in how loud your clearing is, it's in how true your tone remains. So, the deeper teaching within this theme is non interference refinement, a level of energetic intelligence that understands. You don't have to fight a distortion to end it. You don't have to fight a distortion to end it. You simply have to stop harmonizing with it. Harmonic extraction occurs when your field becomes so attuned to the original frequency of source coherence that non coherent frequencies organically detach. This is not a result of force or ritual repetition. This is the natural byproduct of alignment. But let's name this clearly. Most humans have been trained to believe that in order to grow, shift, or release, something must be dramatic, disruptive, or difficult. You're taught that healing must look like pain, clearing must look like conflict, and boundaries must look like cutting off. This is not harmonic. The soul's refinement process is much more subtle. It respects both timing and tone. It works with the innate intelligence of your system, not against it. So when you feel the presence of outdated energy, you don't need to chase it out. You need to slow the tempo of your field, match your breath to your inner coherence, attune to the felt tone of what no longer fits, and let your frequency become the filter. Distortion can't stay in a coherent field. And let us offer a deeper multidimensional context here. And when I'm saying us too, this is from the guides that was brought through in a meditation series. So that's what I'm referring to when I'm saying that. So this is what the guides shared. Many of you are currently experiencing physical symptoms that correlate with energetic congestion, not necessarily illness. These may include fatigue after clearing sessions, fatigue after going outside. It could be you wake up and there's fatigue, digestive sluggishness or sudden clearing after you eat, tenderness at the base of the skull or the back of the heart, emotional intensity without a clear mental cause. These are signs that your body is releasing energetic residue from collective structures. But if you try to push the clearing or dramatize the discomfort, you activate a disruptive release mechanism instead of a harmonic one. So, in a planetary context, the Earth is currently extracting dense imprinting from colonial, patriarchal, and anti-soul grids through frequency-based disengagement, not through annihilation. You may feel this in areas of your life where structure seems to be dissolving without reason. You may ask, why is that relationship just fading? Why is that client not responding? Why haven't I heard from that friend? Why do I feel done with this offering, but it didn't, like, what's happening? Why do I feel done with this offering, but it didn't fail? May have done well. Because your field evolved and what was misaligned extracted itself in the presence of coherence. So this is harmonic extraction. This theme is especially relevant for those who identify as healers, space holders, or system disruptors. You were not meant to extract distortion through battle. I'm going to repeat that. You were not meant to extract distortion through battle. You're meant to shift the field so powerfully that distortion can't anchor. So as you sit with this theme, harmonic extraction, notice where you've been trying to force a release or prove a boundary. What happens when you allow your presence, not your performance, to do the clearing? So really notice what happens when you allow your presence, not your performance, to do the clearing. What distortion dissolves when you stop naming it and start embodying what's true instead. Let your nervous system attune to non-disruptive release. Let refinement come through tone, not trauma. You're entering a refinement corridor where the task is not to fix, but to free. Harmonic extraction is not an aggressive clearing or cathartic upheaval. It is a gentle, vibrationally coherent removal of what no longer matches your inner resonance field without collapsing your nervous system, emotional body, or timeline structure. This, my friends, is soul maturity in motion, releasing without rupture. Many of you associate healing with drama, breakdown, or purging. I mean, y'all, I've been there. Been there. But those symptoms, as the guides have been sharing more and more lately, those symptoms of earlier cycles, those are symptoms of earlier cycles where density had to be forcefully ejected because embodiment capacity was still fragile. So that was at some point beneficial because those symptoms of like breakdown, purging, those were symptoms of earlier cycles where density had to be forcefully ejected because embodiment capacity was still fragile. But now Earth has been clearing a lot. There's been a lot more clearing in the collective, individual. So we're in a different space now. So we need then different language on it. We have like starting to shift the language. So now as your vibrational bandwidth expands and your harmonic grid stabilizes, it becomes possible to extract residue through resonance rather than rupture. And what do I say to that? I say hallelujah to that. I say please, because let me tell you, I don't know about all of you, I've had some moments where I've had some breakdowns for breakthroughs, but let me tell you, going through those breakdowns, woo-wee, I'm all for it then. If it can be with more ease and grace, yes, please. So that is where we are. And it doesn't mean that, we're turning off a light switch and the other one's just going to immediately go on. No, y'all, because the old energy architecture is still clearing and the new is coming in. But with that, though, is this vibrational bandwidth expands, your harmonic grid stabilized, and it becomes possible. And that's the key frame. It becomes possible to extract residue through resonance rather than rupture. But you, my friends, everyone has free will. So that where it becomes possible, it's whether or not you are accepting and then also allowing yourself to work within that space. And it also may take time to learn. So give patience. But residue is not always trauma. Sometimes it's an outdated identity construct, a way of being you just no longer need but haven't formally released. Sometimes it's a habit of speaking from the wound instead of the wisdom, not because you're broken, but because it's familiar. Other times, the residue is subtle, an energetic filament from an old soul agreement still playing out through a tone in your voice, a vibrational shadow echo in your field that pulls in outdated projections, a frequency loop attached to your visibility pattern, where every time you share, you unconsciously open a portal to be siphoned or misread. These are not mistakes, they are harmonic leftovers. Harmonic extraction allows these remnants to be removed without collapsing the core structure. So, then here's an example. You've been healing your voice and begin speaking your light truth more regularly. But each time you do, you feel depleted. The depletion is not about the message, it's the residue of an old vibrational agreement that linked light truth telling with being punished. Through harmonic extraction, that link can dissolve, not by shutting your voice down, but by updating the tone that light truth travels on. Here's another example. You've released an old relationship contract, but you keep dreaming of that person. It's not because the contract is still active. It's because the energetic trail in your emotional body hasn't been cleared from your dreaming layer. With harmonic extraction, the trail is gently lifted from the dream field without ripping your emotional clarity away and apart. Here's another example. You've shifted timelines, but parts of your aura still carry the signature of your old career, city, or mission role. People keep responding to to the you that no longer exists. Harmonic extraction clears the outdated signature so that others meet your present frequency, not your past identity. So, this is especially important right now because we're going to go back to the Earth's planetary grid. Because remember, we are in Earth's body. So the Earth's planetary grid is undergoing a refinement sequence through the upper throat chakra, through the upper throat and occipital chakra bands, the back brain throat junction. This is affecting the way collective thought forms are projected, received, and extracted. If you are unaware of lingering residue in your throat or perception layers, you may become entangled in energetic feedback loops, either internal, like rumination, or external, like others misreading your current signal. So, this theme also links to the new crystalline protocols coming online through the Arcturian frequency technicians, through the Oversoul Council of Harmonic Creatorship, removal without disruption, realignment without collapse, light truth without drama. I say yes to all those three, please. Thank you very much. With ease and grace. Thank you. Here's a light message from herself, Aurelia. You are no longer here to perform your clearing through collapse. You're here to walk gently through the field and choose which harmonics no longer belong, not as rejection, but as resonance alignment. You do not need to shout or purge what simply can be released by frequency. Let the residue lift like fog off a morning field without story, without strain. Take a nice deep breath here. Yes. All right. Here's this theme in connection to the tri-wave alignment. Debris clearing phase. Old resonance threads are gently lifted and unhooked from the field. This theme then connects to the wave of becoming, midline contraction necessary to allow precise removal, and then connected to the planetary fields. The planetary crystalline matrix is gently lifting non-coherent frequencies from the collective emotional body. No rupture is necessary. The removal is clean, subtle, exact. You are not being punished. You're being cleared by grace. Your body may feel spacious, unfamiliar. This is residue-free tone. And with that, my friends, we are complete with theme 7. And now we're going to move into theme number 8. Timeline shedding, releasing old soul assignments with grace. So, friends, there comes a moment on the path where you are no longer held back by fear, but by familiarity. Not because you haven't healed, but because you haven't yet honored that a soul contract has completed. This theme marks a powerful transition phase, the energetic release of past timeline assignments, roles, missions, vows, relationships, geographies, personas, or service paths that were once aligned but no longer match your harmonic blueprint. This is not abandonment. This is not failure. This is soul refinement. Timeline shedding often arises not in confusion, but in quiet clarity, a knowing that I'm no longer supposed to carry this. This isn't mine to maintain anymore. Even if I could, I shouldn't go back. But the shedding is not always instant. Many of you feel the pull to linger out of loyalty to who you used to be or the people, structures built around those older roles. That loyalty, if unchecked, can become entangled. Timeline shedding is a sacred act of energetic integrity. It means closing the frequency door without drama and without dragging others through your transition. So, again, timeline shedding is a sacred act of energetic integrity. It means closing the frequency door without drama and without dragging others through your transition. Here's an example. You once held the role of energetic anchor in your family, community, or client field, but now staying in that role drains your light instead of amplifying it. That soul assignment has expired. Continuing to hold that position is no longer service, it's distortion. Another example. A city, business, or creative offering once lit you up. But now when you tune in, it feels like static. Not wrong, just expired. The timeline you were working through, that structure has completed. And its energetic scaffolding is no longer supporting your becoming. Here's another example. A spiritual teacher, modality, or frequency field that once catalyzed your growth now feels restrictive. That does not mean it's false. It just means the contract is fulfilled. Releasing it with reverence allows you to walk forward without rejecting your past. Here's another example. This is a collective lens. Many of you incarnated during dense eras of planetary grid entrapment and karmic distortion. You may have been assigned roles to hold light in painful structures: education, government, church, media, law, medicine. Those assignments are now releasing en masse. The grid no longer requires light keepers, or whatever language you want to use. I'll just say light keepers, requires light keepers to embed in outdated systems. But if you're still identifying with that timeline, you may feel disoriented, purposeless, or falsely obligated to stay in the fight. The fight is over. You're free. And then in terms of the planetary context, Earth is currently entering a tri-wave patterning window connected to the causal and celestial field timelines. Layers where the oversoul level assignments were coded into your Earth contracts. These layers are undergoing a soft dismantling, where expired missions are being gently extracted, not by force, but by harmonic unhooking. So this is especially active through the base spine and the occipital gate, where old timeline anchors were lodged in the body's harmonic scaffolding. So you may feel sensations of unplugging from structures that once defined you. grief or relief with no clear narrative, memories surfacing of past life service patterns. For example, priestess, protector, gatekeeper, rebel, healer, etc. Shifts in how you relate to being of service or having a purpose. These are not identity crises. They are timeline unravelings. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be uncomfortable, though. There might be moments for the human, but that's where also using your tools and supporting yourself through it. But these are not identity crises. They are timeline unraveling. And here's a message from Oversoul Sahariel and the Oversoul Council of Harmonic Creatorship. To shed a timeline is not to lose a purpose. It is to allow purpose to evolve. Soul does not seek repetition. Soul seeks resonance, and resonance is never static. When a soul assignment completes, your field begins to loosen its grip. But if your identity remains bound to the old service role, distortion enters. Service becomes sacrifice. Purpose becomes pressure. Visibility becomes obligation. This is not alignment. This is entrapment disguised as duty. Walk forward with reverence, with clarity, with grace. That's the end of that light transmission. Let's take a nice deep breath on that one. Whew, y'all. Okay, so now how this connects to the tribe wave alignment. It's a finality node, a harmonic completion sweep occurs here. Contracts are released from the multidimensional spine and connects to the wave of becoming. Spiral edge softens, fractal endings become visible. How it connects to the planetary field. The field is allowing for peaceful unbinding of expired soul contracts. Grid lines, once used for karmic recycling, are being rerouted. You do not need to heal them. You only need to release. It's about releasing. You do not need to heal them, only to release harmonic consent. This is not loss, it's vibrational closure. All right, and then that moves us into the final theme number 9. Embodied reverberation, walking as the frequency you've claimed. Friends, y'all, you do not need to say it. You're already reverberating it. The final theme of this month does not bring a new activation. It brings the stabilized reverberation of what you've already chosen to embody. The work has been done. The choice has been made. The light is already stabilized in your field. Now you walk it. This is not about outward confirmation. It is about internal coherence. That feeling with thought, body, energy, action, and soul all speak the same frequency, even in silence. You're not performing your light truth. You are defending your hold on a minute. I was going too fast. You're not performing. Okay. You're not performing your light truth, and you're not defending your resonance. You're simply being it. So you're not performing your light truth, and you're not defending your resonance. You're simply being it. And that changes the field more than any broadcast ever could. So simply by being your resonance changes it. So why reverberation? Which I will say one thing, y'all. When the guides bring these things through, I'm always like, sometimes I'll be like, well, like maybe not that word. And they're really insistent on this word, which I live currently in California, but I did grow up on the East Coast in Massachusetts. And so there are moments in my humaning where I will drop my R's. And so reverberation for somebody who comes from the East Coast, from Massachusetts, specifically from, I was like, oh my goodness. And the guides were like, just connect to the essence of the word, the frequency of the word. And so I'm like, okay, I can connect to the frequency of the word. And I will say, in doing that, it is a lot easier in saying reverberation. Whereas before, if I was just focused on like, let me hit the R's, I was just focusing on that as opposed to tone and frequency. And just focusing on the frequency of the word, it flows a lot easier for me. So I just wanted to bring that up because I just thought it was funny because I'm saying reverberation so much um and I just love that. I just love these little hints along the way that kind of supports you in terms of, me embodying exactly what we're talking about too. All right, so why reverberation? Because when true embodiment occurs, it sends a frequency signature into every room, timeline, and interaction without effort. You no longer need to announce who you are, the field knows. But this only happens when there is no longer a leak between knowing and walking. When clarity isn't just stated, but lived through your pacing, your choices, your nervous system, your boundaries, your stillness. And this is the difference between I know I'm worthy, I know I'm worthy versus I act for my worth. This is the difference between I claim alignment versus I allow misalignment to fall away without chasing it. This is the difference between I trust myself versus I don't argue with my inner yes or no. So, signs you are in embodied reverberation. You stop over explaining your evolution to others. You no longer panic when things fall away because your field is carrying the light truth. You feel safe even when unseen because your soul has seen you. You notice others responding differently to you without needing to do anything. You're in your beingness. And so this month's themes have stripped the overlays, and now what remains is not performance. It's light truth that's stabilized as tone. So, in the connection to this, in terms of the planetary alignment, this closing theme mirrors a stabilization in Earth's planetary heart grid, especially within the core resonance layer of the crystalline body field. August completes a magnetic purification cycle that began in April. In April, y'all. Remember April? And the end of April when that's when the information started flowing in more specifically about the wave of becoming and the tri wave. And I also at the time, I don't know if anybody remembers that I was sick, but the guys kept saying I was in a detox purifying. That is right. So here we go. August completing that magnetic purification cycle that began in April. And the inner spiral now tightens into what we call tone holding. The soul's vibrational note being held steady regardless of outer conditions. So, those of you who have done the integration work may feel quieter, less urgent, less compelled to prove, fix, or teach. Y'all, this is not retreat, it's reverberation. So, let's connect to that. This is the point where many will say, you seem different, but you won't be trying. You'll simply be vibrating the soul note you've anchored. So here's a light transmission from Aurelia. You do not need to repeat your declarations. They're already humming through your cells. They are encoded in your breath, your walk, your gaze. What you have chosen in alignment has been recorded in the harmonic archives. Now it flows through you without needing to be summoned. This is what it means to reverberate, to let your frequency speak where your words fall silent. The invitation now is not to activate more, it is to allow the activation to be seen through your embodiment. Let the field carry the message. Let your steps become the sermon. Let your breath do the light transmission. And with that, then, this is the completion, friends. We are going to be completing this now. This is the completion. The broadcast is over. The field is alive with the resonance of what you've chosen. So, in the connection then to this theme of theme 9 to the tri-wave alignment, stabilization phase, the wave crests into stillness, field coherence anchors, wave of becoming. You're no longer riding the wave, you're walking as it. The planetary field grid connection to this theme is a neutral phase pulse, a preparatory silence before the next harmonic wave. So you're preparing in terms of preparing silence before the next harmonic wave. You're no longer sinking to planetary fluctuation. You're walking as a stabilized field. The earth recognizes you not by what you say, but how you resonate. And the field is holding still to mirror your coherence. So, with that, my friends, let's take a nice deep breath on that. Whew. Those are the energy forecast themes for August. And so now we're just going to do a closing, connecting back to the overall aspect. And we'll do the closing of refining the resonance, honoring what remains after the shedding. August does not ask for more, it asks for honesty with what is. You know, I have done a lot of journaling in my life, but most recently, really from like April on, I have been specifically like just being extremely honest to my guides and in what's happening in my life and things like that. And it's just interesting because now we get to this point where it's like the guides are like, and they've been saying along the way to me, just be as honest as you can. Just share with us how you are feeling. Don't hold back. And now I understand it from a whole nother level, because this is a big part of then being able to shift into the space of refining the resonance, because August doesn't ask for more. It's asking for honesty with what is. And so this is not a month of like external expansion. It is a month of internal recalibration, field refinement, and harmonic realignment. The thresholds you've crossed cannot be undone. The old assignments no longer fit, not because you have failed, but because you've evolved beyond the frameworks that once defined you. This month will carry you through 9 initiations, not as isolated experiences, but as harmonic layers weaving together into a coherent frequency. Each theme offers a tone of refinement, a note of recalibration, and then with that, now the symphony plays through your body. There is no need to project forward, force action, or seek confirmation externally. Instead, this forecast invites you to walk as the field you've stabilized. Every vibrational shift you've claimed internally is now reverberating outward as embodied frequency. The shedding is complete. The shedding was not a loss, it was a field purification. And what remains is not residue, it is resonance. It is resonance. So, with that, my friends, also just to note about the energy forecast, it's not always linear per se in how the humans perceive, like it's August and here are the 9 themes. Sometimes the human still could be completing themes from like April, May, and also August, or you could eventually be in like November and be finishing up a few from August, in September and be in November. We're multidimensional. And that's why too, these aspects of the energy forecast, they're not just meant for like one and done for this month. It's a living energetic library of architecture to support you. And so let yourself make a note of where this is, so that way when you need it, you can come back to it to support you. If you are in the Inspiring You Patreon, specifically the all access, you will have access to all of the transcripts. And with the transcripts that are going to be coming in, there are also just a lot of, light transmissions that came through for just during the meditations that I did that have connection to this energy forecast that I put together. I compile it all to let you have access to all the materials that have come through it, which also means that there's also, the guides offer integration tools. They offer affirmation work. They offer, journal questions. They offer, there's a lot that they bring in for each energy theme. But in regard to doing podcasts, it's just much easier to compile at some point all of the channeled material and put it out there on the all access Patreon tier. So I definitely recommend that. And then at some point, we will be doing tomorrow, August 2nd, we will have a live class of the dowsing energy session that goes along with it, which again, that's the all access level. They have access to that on the Patreon. The paid Patreon will have access to that at some point. It just gets put up later on. But there's just more tools and options available on the Inspiring You Patreon because I have more space to put things on, especially because with Spotify or YouTube, I'm only able to put a certain amount of word count, and there's just a lot more space on the Inspiring You Patreon. So if you're interested, I will put the link I'll put the link in the show notes to support people. If you're interested in joining us over there, we would love to have you be part of our community. And with that, my friends, though, let's go into the closing. And so before we do that, let's just take a moment to close our eyes if you wish to and take 3 deep breaths. Breathing in life force energy, breathing out what no longer supports you. Breathing in life force energy, breathing out what no longer supports you. Taking a moment. All right, take another deep breath. And we're going to do the official closing of this. And this is the Harmonic seal, which was channeled, and it's from Oversoul Sahariel, Soul Aligned Higher Self Aurelia, and the Oversoul Council of Harmonic Creatorship. This is from them. This is the Harmonic seal. We now begin the harmonic closure of this shared light transmission field. All light codes, vibrational truths, and soul frequencies received are now gently integrated, anchored in each of your own oversouled aligned timeline and embodied wisdom. Let the resonance recalibrate within you. Let what no longer serves fall away without struggle. Let what is true harmonize your next steps. Take a nice deep breath there. And then here's the reintegration invocation. I now request full reintegration of all parts of your field, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and multidimensional through your higher self and oversoul in alignment with your soul's original source blueprint. I call in full sealing of your energy body, buffered, protected through your own oversoul stream. All non-resonant frequencies are now released and transmuted. All resonance points are now harmonized and closed in perfect alignment. I now close this ceremonial light transmission with the Oversoul Stream protocol. All channels opened for the sharing of this podcast episode or through YouTube or the replay are now sealed in crystalline clarity. All connections made are returned to source. All energy is sovereign. All is complete. Take a nice deep breath there. And just because I personally like to do it, we're going to do the breaking of the link. So if this resonates with you, you can repeat after me. I asked to break the links with this talk. I asked to break the links with this energy session, leaving only harmony and balance at either ends. I asked to clear any residual energies being held in my body as a result of these links. I ask that light fill the void, cells, rejuvenates, refreshes, revitalizes for the highest good with ease and grace and gratitude. Take a nice deep breath there. All right. All is complete now. My friends, thank you for being here with me, for walking this path of remembrance, for you listening, not just with your ears, but with your field. You are the frequency, you are the instrument, you are the embodied resonance of your soul. My friends, until soon, stay inspired. Much, much love.